right, welcome in everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Closer Look program with the Natural Resources Foundation. I'm going to share my screen and get the presentation going. Okay, is everyone looking at the full PowerPoint slide? Good. Okay, sweet. All right, so thank you for hopping in today. Just a few things, a few announcements on the foundation end that I wanted to make everyone aware of. We are celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, 40 years of conservation with NRF. And we have two October events we're really excited about. We have a new conservation film in the works with PBS Wisconsin. We partnered with them to put on an hour-long documentary focusing on the people across our state who dedicate their lives to conservation. The filming is currently, they've been finishing that up and editing everything, splicing everything. So save the dates here are available for our sneak peek events this fall. We have a Madison location and a Milwaukee one. The Madison event is Wednesday, October 21st from 5 to 7 at the Monona Terrace. And the Milwaukee event is Saturday, October 24th, 10 to 2 at Havenwoods State Forest. And there will be two different sneak peek and Q&A sessions at 11 and 1. So we have a couple weeks yet before the registration pages will be available, but make sure you save your seat for those events when that comes time. And then I also wanted to just give alerts about our field trips program. We have a lot of open trips for August. So a lot of variety here, fish passage. We've got monarch tagging, mushroom hike, sip and seed. So a little bit of everything for everyone. If any of these trips sound interesting to you, you can visit our wisconservation.org/open field trips to find your perfect trip. All right, and then I'll pass it over today. So Closer Look today is with Snapshot Wisconsin, and we have Mackenzie Glasford here with us. She is the operations manager of Snapshot Wisconsin, and she helps coordinate the outreach and education programming. She'll introduce today Wisconsin Snapshot, get you information on how you can be involved, how the data is used to support wildlife management decisions. She'll also discuss a newly launched Phenology Project, which is a collaborative effort with UW-Madison to better understand how wildlife responds to changing seasons. So Mackenzie, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll pass it over to you.
Hey, sounds good. And that was a great snapshot photo that you shared from right away. Okay, let me just share. Okay, did you see the full PowerPoint?
Yes, yep, it looks
Okay,
great.
great. Awesome. Well, thank y'all for joining. Um, like Naomi said, I'll give an overview of the project, how you can be involved, and I'll wrap up too by introducing our newly launched Phenology Project. So if you're not familiar, we're a project through Wisconsin DNR. We're a community science project for monitoring wildlife through a statewide network of trail cameras. And we partner with volunteers across the state to deploy and maintain trail cameras for us. And the photos that come in from those trail cameras are transformed into usable data. So there's two goals that we set out to achieve. First, I already alluded to, is to provide data needed to make wildlife management decisions. But we also believe it's a great way to increase public engagement and get people involved with natural resources, and also to collaborate directly with the Department of Natural Resources itself. So just a little bit background on the project and how we got started. So the project started back in 2015. The project launched with several hundred trail cameras deployed across the newly established elk reintroduction areas. And if you're not familiar, elk were eliminated from Wisconsin back in the 1880s, but they've gone through two rounds of reintroductions in the state, and one in 1995, the other in 2015. and they needed ways to monitor them. And one of those ways was using Snapshot Wisconsin trail cameras, along with other sources such as GPS collars. But in 2018, the project launched statewide and began accepting volunteers for all 72 counties across the state. And so this map here is our current distribution of trail cameras. So the orange blocks indicates that there is at least one volunteer monitored trail camera in that block. Last year was a big year for us. We turned 10 years old, so we celebrated our anniversary. And it also in the same year, we collected our 100th million trail camera photo. So big year for us. And now we're nearly at 110 million photos. So we are well on our way to our next big milestone. But currently, we have just over 1,800 volunteers who host trail cameras, and they help us monitor over 1,850 cameras across the state. So, I also wanted to talk about how you can get involved. And one you could probably guess is to help us host trail cameras across the state. So if you're interested, you could go online to our website, and our application page looks like this map to the right, and you can either zoom in or even search for an address or public property. And the orange blocks indicates that's currently occupied, but all the like green non-filled in areas are available, and you could host on either your private property or public property is also an option with land manager permission, which is usually pretty easy to get. But you could do that at like a state park or your county forest. So a lot of options across the state. Once folks are onboarded, we provide all equipment and training that they need. So there's no cost to the volunteers. We provide the trail cameras, batteries, SD cards, so on and so forth. So there's no cost to the volunteer. And hosting a trail camera involves deploying and maintaining the trail camera for at least a year. And they are required to swap out SD cards and batteries at least every 3 months throughout that year. So after they swap out the SD cards, the camera hosts get the first opportunity to review and classify the trail cameras images that were collected from the camera. We do hope that they are able to learn what's in their backyard, what's in their public park nearby, that sort of thing. And although trail camera hosts do get the first opportunity to classify the images, they may not always have the time to do so. It's not a requirement of being a camera host. And then there's also some photos that can be more difficult to classify than others. So, for instance, like a fisher, like here on the screen, when compared to a mink, mink are smaller, but they are similar in body shape, or like a classic example where wolf versus coyote can be difficult to identify. So, because photos can be more difficult than others to classify, most of the snapshot photos also get sent to Zooniverse to get a further set of eyes on them to help with classification. So that brings me to the second way that you can get involved with the project, and that is through Zooniverse. Now, if you aren't familiar, Zooniverse is an online crowdsourcing site where anyone around the world can contribute to community science projects. So there's more on Zooniverse than just Snapshot Wisconsin. There's other wildlife projects. There's also other disciplines like music and history. So I definitely encourage you to check it out. I think it's a really great platform. But we're here to talk about Snapshot, and so this is our Snapshot Wisconsin Zooniverse page. We have volunteers from around the globe that have helped us classify photos. So this is a map showing the 37 countries around the world that have classified Wisconsin wildlife photos. And I just always think that's such a cool thing that this platform, Zooniverse, gives us the ability to reach audiences well outside, uh, not only like the state and the country, but also outside of the country. So I'm a big fan of Zooniverse, if you can't tell. We do say whether you have experience classifying wildlife or not, Zooniverse is a great entry point, and we have plenty of resources to get people started as they begin classifying. So, just to give you an idea of how it works on Zooniverse, I thought I would showcase the classification page. So, you would go to the classify button in the right-hand corner, and that will bring you to a page that looks just like this. On the left-hand side will be a series of three triggers, or three images, which make up a trigger. So essentially, if there's movement in front of the camera, it'll take a burst of three photos. So that's what you see there on the left. And then on the right-hand side is a list of Wisconsin wildlife species that you can choose from when you're classifying. So for instance, if I am pretty certain that this is a raccoon, I would select raccoon from the classification list. And then it will bring up this next pop-up where you can choose the number of individuals you see and whether there's young present or not. Um, Depending on the species that you choose, it will have a different set of questions. So deer, for example, will also ask if there's um, antlers or not, or if there's a fawn visible in the photo. And like I said, there's also plenty of resources as you're classifying. There's a field guide that's available to the right-hand side of the trail camera image. And the field guide has all the species. It has reference photos. And a lot of the times species can look different during the day or at night. So we also have photos comparing those. We have range maps and really good descriptions for each species. So we don't want people to feel like they need to, know how to identify wildlife before they get started here. Um, Hopefully, it shows that I'm a big fan of Zooniverse and what it allows us to do with Snapshot. It gives us the ability to process photos at a way quicker rate than we'd be able to otherwise. I mean, we're a team of, I think, like 7 or 8 now. So there's no way we'd be able to process this amount of data, millions of photos quickly enough to make management contributions. So Zooniverse is an amazing platform. One question that we do get a lot is like, how can we trust the classifications from Zooniverse? Well, each photo is classified multiple times on Zooniverse, and it allows us to reach a consensus of what is seen in the photo. So it's not necessarily like one person is classifying an image and we call it good. It's multiple people looking at an image until they all agree, essentially. But there are photos that don't reach a consensus, and when that happens, it gets sent back to us for further classification. So classifications done by our staff. In addition to the classifications, Zooniverse is a really great community of folks who are interested in wildlife and want to talk about it. We have talk boards that people can view. Hopefully, you're not seeing my computer notifications that pop up. Um, so yeah, you could go online to the talk boards, and it's also a great way to help you classify along the way. So for instance, in this example, we had a user use the what is hashtag, and that essentially notifies us. Our staff members hop online to the talk boards to interact with the volunteers as well, or other users can also help answer the question for you. So this user answered the what is alarm bell and essentially let the user know that it's a otter and did a great description of why it is otter. So in addition to the resources that you can read and look at, there's also a great community that can help you along the way. And another fun aspect of the talk boards is you can nominate photos for a super snap, hashtag super snap, and it's could be really great photos that you see. It could be interesting photos or funny photos, and it's just essentially giving a shout out to some of the great photos that come through. And once a month, one of our staff members highlights those in a separate talk board and gives a shout out to that particular user and give some fun facts about it along the way. And the last thing I want to mention about Zooniverse is it can be a great way to gain volunteer credit hours. And so I really like mentioning it because it's a newer resource that they started providing this, I think, last year. But they have an option to view the number of classifications or the number of hours that you spent on a certain project. And it generates this really nice certificate for you that you can use to fulfill those credits. So I always like to mention that because it's an easy way to fulfill volunteer credits. Okay, so we have folks collect photos for us. We have people around the world help classify these trail camera images, but what exactly happens after that? Well, that brings me to the contributions of that go into conservation and management. So all of those photo classifications get transformed into usable data. So I thought I'd highlight a handful of those today. So with white-tailed deer, as you can imagine, is the the number one species that we detect way more than other wildlife species. And because of that, we're able to track population subsets. So fawns versus does, for example, it's easy to distinguish between the two. And it gives us the ability to provide reproductive metrics. So looking at the number of individuals that are added to the population each year. We've been providing fauna metrics to the Citizen Deer Advisory Council for each deer management unit since 2017, and we do so annually. So this is our most long running management contribution since the project started. And the council that we provide this information to, they use snapshot data along with other data sources, um, public input, other surveys, that sort of thing, to make recommendations for each deer management unit. Um, for elk, I already mentioned that's essentially how the project got started. Um, there are other ways that they have started monitoring elk, such as through like drone surveys and things like that. So we don't necessarily provide data that we used to with elk, but we do continue to provide outside of the expected range of individuals. So helping to track the expansion of the population and identify any individual dispersers. And for wolves, this is a big one for us. The locations that Snapshot provides has become the primary source of confirmed wolf locations statewide. So that's been a big contribution over the years too. Um, why is it? There you go. In addition to those, I'll just briefly cover some more examples. We started providing spatial and temporal trends for several species in 2022. This was a year that we began providing temporal and spatial trends for fur bears, and this includes species such as bobcat, otter, and fisher. And we use it in a similar way that we provide the fauna-doe ratios. We essentially provide that to species committees, and they use that information along with other data sources to make management decisions. 2024, again, similar. We started providing black bear products to bear advisory committees. And last but not least, most recently in 2025, Snapshot began providing spatial and temporal trends for turkeys. And they provide that to a committee that meets twice per year to set harvest quotas for the spring and autumn seasons. In addition to providing the management support, Snapshot data has contributed to over 20 scientific research publications, and we also provide that link in our DNR webpage and circled here in red. And if you were to continue through that, you'd be brought to a page that lists each publication. You can read a summary of each, so the key findings of each paper. And we've had our own research staff create these publications, PhD students, a wide variety of professionals. The reason I like to mention the research publications, I know that scientific research publications aren't always everyone's jam. But the reason I mention it is because a big question that we ask is like, what are we looking for? What species are we trying to capture on the trail cameras? And the answer is like everything. I think of Snapshot as just a big collection of photos. We collect as much data as we can. We collect the most accurate data that we can, and people can use it for a variety of reasons. The decision support products that we mentioned, but also to answer a variety of research questions that may come up for them. And then I also wanted to mention our data dashboard, which is a tool that's been pretty popular over the past handful of years. But this is an online tool designed to help visualize the Snapshot Wisconsin data, and it's available to the public. So this is obviously just a screenshot of it, but on the left-hand side, you can select from 22 different Wisconsin wildlife species. And once you select that species, everything to the right of it will repopulate to show the detections that we've had. So with the map, you can see the detections that have occurred across the state and how frequent that has been. And then on the right-hand side, you could see the detections, the temporal detections. So you can see the detections throughout the day. You could also change the graph to highlight the detections throughout the year as well. And there's other aspects to the data dashboard. You can download the data yourself and look at it. It's been a big tool that educators have used in the classroom, or it's also just a really great tool. You know, if you're just curious on what is occurring like in your area. I know we use it a lot when we get questions when we're doing outreach events like, oh, where is this species throughout the state? And we have this ready to use tool that we can show them, like this is exactly where we're seeing the species. So, um, like I said, it's available to the public and it's through our DNR webpage. So the data dashboard doesn't show all the species found in Wisconsin necessarily, just the 22 species that we've had the most detections of, because then we are able to create these graphical representations. But that's not to say that we don't also collect information on rare species. So a final contribution that I wanted to mention for Snapshot Wisconsin is that it serves as a way to detect and monitor rare species across the state, which include moose, marten, whooping crane, and cougar. Um, these are our most recent detections that we've had. So as you can see, it doesn't happen very often, but it is exciting when it does happen. Um, Once a rare species is detected, we confirm the identification with experts, and then we report out to the appropriate research scientists, as well as the Wisconsin DNR Natural Heritage Conservation, who more keep up with the records of all rare species sightings. And we also report out to partnering organizations. So, like with Whooping Crane, we notify the International Crane Foundation that we captured a photo of a whooping crane. And those are really fun too, because a lot of the times whooping cranes have identification bands on their legs. And the team at ICF can say which individual it is, where it was born, how old it is. And so it's really cool to get like a background of the whooping cranes when that does happen. Okay, so that's essentially what we've been up to for the past 10 years. But like Naomi mentioned, I wanted to share what's new with Snapshot Wisconsin, and that's with our Phenology Project. I've been kind of describing it as a side quest of Snapshot Wisconsin in addition to the trail cameras. So in 2025, Snapshot and UW-Madison received a grant from NASA to launch this quote unquote side quest. But what exactly is a project or what exactly is phenology? So throughout the year, the amount of sun we get changes, plants bloom and grow, and trees drop their leaves. But so this is a glimpse into the world of phenology. And so basically, we're talking about studying seasons throughout the year. With snapshot cameras being deployed 24 hours a day, 12 months out of the year, it gives us a really great opportunity to be able to see with our own eyes how these changes happen and better understand how things like temperature or snow cover can affect wildlife in that area. So, outside of temperature and snow cover, there is another big change that happens with the seasons that scientists measure, which is changes in vegetation. Um, but how do they exactly measure that? That is how the collaboration with NASA comes in. One of the ways that scientists at NASA are able to study changes in seasonal uh, vegetation is by using satellite imagery. So essentially, they use satellites orbiting the Earth to measure reflected light from vegetation. And from that reflected light, they're able to detect when plants start to green up or when they start to shut down for the winter. So this type of research is called remote sensing. However, there is some drawbacks with that method. If you think about a satellite looking down on Earth, it only sees the tops of the trees. So it completely misses that below the surface, essentially. So they're missing the shrubs, the where wildlife are essentially occurring. And so while we can get a lot of information from that remote sensing, we can't actually see what's on the ground. So that's where the snapshot trail cameras come in. They're placed perfectly on a tree with a view of that understory, and it gives us a rare view of the changes in vegetation right there on the forest floor. I'll also mention that our trail cameras aren't only triggered by motion, but it's set to take a time-lapse photo once a day in the morning. And so the time-lapse photos is what they're going to be using to capture that range of vegetation activity on the forest floor. So the research aims of this project, like I already mentioned, is related to remote sensing to improve the statistical models of vegetation cover by combining the satellite imagery with the trail camera photos. But it's also hoping to understand how seasonal patterns like variation in snow cover, temperature, and vegetation affect wildlife across the state. So to do that, we selected a subset of Snapshot Wisconsin volunteers to help us deploy additional sets of equipment at their trail camera locations. So the first set of equipment is snow stakes. We have over 300 volunteers have these deployed in front of their trail cameras. Next set of equipment is the temperature sensors. So we have 200 of those deployed across the state, and they're just screwed into the tree right above the trail camera. They're set to record ambient temperature at the site every 15 minutes, so we'll be able to capture data of the minimum and maximum temperature at those individual sites. And last is our sound recorders. We'll be able to learn more about wildlife that are too small to be captured by captured by trail cameras. So, like amphibians, for example, are too small to be detected a lot of the times, or birds in the area. Although I will say we do get some really great bird photos flying by the trail cameras. Um, so while this project is brand new, we don't quite have the data to share quite yet because we're still collecting it as we speak. But our partners at UW-Madison have been working hard to prepare for that incoming data and how to look at it. So I thought I could share that with y'all quickly today. So to better understand snow cover throughout the year, folks at UW-Madison trained a computer model to look at snapshot photos and estimate the ground cover that's covered in snow. So this chart here shows the photos, and essentially it scores the photo to see if it's has snow cover or not. So just to kind of go over how they score it, in the bottom section in the red, that indicates bare ground. And so the ground has no snow at all. And if you follow the like orange color up, you can see the photos that it's referring to, essentially. Patchy snow, that's the middle blue area. It receives a score between -1 and 4. And that essentially means either melted slush or like a recent snow dusting of sorts. And then finally, deep snow, it gets a score between 4 and 9. And that snow, that means that snow is covering 80% of the ground or more. And then from there, as this snow gets deeper, the snow stakes will be able to measure that depth. Temperature sensors, these can provide valuable information on the area's microclimate, which can be quite a bit different from outside of the canopy temperatures. So where like the weather stations are, the temperature can be quite a bit different. So UW-Madison deployed a temperature sensor in a forested area in a microclimate. So the blue line indicates um, the pilot data that they collected, and as you can see, it shows less variation than the red line, which was temperature captured by a nearby weather station in an open field. So we're able to see how that microclimate has less variation throughout the year. And last is the audio data to identify the species in the area that may not have been captured by the trail cameras. They plan to look at a spectrogram, which is a graph of frequency and volume over time, or it collects the audio in the area. And so this example, it collected 3 different species of migratory warblers that returned to Wisconsin during the spring. And each song has a unique shape or pattern to it. So they're using an automatic classifier to be able to identify that species. And then they'll use internal experts to review that data. So that's just a glimpse on how they are planning to look into it. You know, I'm excited to be able to see it myself and be able to share that out in presentations like this. But until then, we've just really enjoyed the photos that have come in with the wildlife that has been interacting with this new equipment. So I wanted to wrap up the presentation by sharing some of those photos. So they're all with the snow stake. The one on the left is a fisher hugging the snow stake. On the right-hand side is an owl trying to make a landing, but I don't think it's working out quite well. Uh, there's also been plenty of deer that have been interested in the snow stake, and on the right-hand side, a porcupine investigating it as well. And then finally, we have learned that black bears are really interested in the snow stakes, and that snow stakes are no match for black bears. And so that's been a little bit of a learning curve and figuring out what to do when that happens. But regardless, the photos have been really amazing to look at. So with that, I will wrap it up and take any questions that y'all might have on the project.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mackenzie. I'll just bookend quickly before we go into the Q&A. For those interested, NRF does partner with Snapshot Wisconsin, and we have a fund that you can give to that we then distribute those funds to Snapshot. So in your annual giving, monthly giving, however you'd like to, if you want to indicate you'd like it to go to Snapshot Wisconsin Fund, we can make that happen. Great. Okay, we can head into any questions. I did have one right off the bat. I know you gave the example of kind of the turkey data then guides your harvesting levels for the season. Do you have other examples of how your snapshot program guides your wildlife management decisions?
Yeah, so I would say turkey along with deer are the biggest examples. Um, with like the fur bearers, it could contribute to management decisions, like I believe with bobcat, for example. But then there's other just species that they want to keep an eye on, like beaver, I want to say is one. So yeah, it's like I think of not being the like the I'm more on the volunteer management side of it, but
Right. Yep.
but like how I think of it is we just kind of put the data in this nice little package and give it to the appropriate parties, and they, you know, do with it what is best.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I was just curious, Mackenzie, and thanks again for the great presentation. That information is really cool. I guess now I need to get one of those uh, snow monitoring sticks to get some bears in my property. I think that's the key I've been missing to see a bear in Wisconsin. So I'm gonna have to run out and get one of those. But I was wondering, with the technology changing and cameras getting more and more precise, and the technology be just becoming cheaper, and even having people with bird feeder cameras who can get notifications when a bird flies in. How are you thinking this might change in 10 years? Are you thinking that there could be like insect cameras or really specialized birding cameras, or are there any, kind of forward looking, out there discussions your team has had about what this could mean and for citizen scientists in 10 years or so?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's funny you should ask. We're actually in the process of sending out or starting to send out a new model of trail camera that are cellular. And typically with cellular trail cameras, well, I will say cellular trail cameras are way more popular now than when Snapshot started. So, it's hard for us to keep up with technology. So, yeah, it's amazing how technology has advanced over the years. So we have a cellular trail camera now that we're starting to send out, and we're using some of the functionality of it. So, we're going to be able to use the cameras collect their own date and time and their location. So we'll be able to, make our the time and date and the location information a lot more accurate now, which is exciting. Um, it can be difficult to incorporate like the automatic upload of those trail cameras just with our infrastructure right now. But who knows what that might look like in the future. As far as collecting other species on trail cameras, um, yeah, I do think oh, I'm sure we'll get to all that, technology is advancing quite rapidly. I do know a project, a fisheries project that uses trail cameras underwater to collect fish imagery. So, um, yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities that could come up.
That's very cool. Having fishery imagery, that's awesome. Any other questions for Mackenzie about Snapshot program? All right, Sally in the chat says, if the areas of the state where you live or visit are already taken, can you help with recommending close by areas?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to reach out to us with, yeah, our contact information is there on the screen. If you want to reach out to us, we can help try to identify a public property. Otherwise, if it is taken like on your private property, I always encourage folks to apply anyway because you'll be put on a wait list. And we do have turnover throughout the year. So once your block does become available, we can reach out to you to let you know.
Yeah, and Mackenzie, what kind of like minimum requirements if somebody was like, oh, I might want one of those cameras on my land? Do you have like absolute, we love these characteristics of your land, or is it just kind of any land?
Yeah, any land really. There's not certain habitat that we require.
Hmm.
We do say for like private property that we give a general requirement of at least 10 acres of property that you
Okay.
own. But that being said, we are fairly flexible. Say if your property butts up to something nearby, like a wildlife area, um, really that rule is just so like we're not looking into like people's houses. And so
Right.
like as long as like there's no privacy concerns, yeah, we're fairly flexible.
Thanks. Any last questions? Doesn't sound like it. Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so great to learn about the Snapshot Wisconsin program and where you've been and where you're going and all the exciting new things, new endeavors. Um, like I said, NRF does have a Snapshot Wisconsin fund, so if you're interested in getting involved there, you can indicate that on any of your giving. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their weekend, and thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thanks, Naomi.
Take care.